Welcome to Real Life Approaches to Managing Youth Privacy. This is a SWE Next Best Practice session. My name is Mary Zeiss. I'm a SWE volunteer leader. For the purposes of this session, the most important credentials are the two at the bottom. I was co-lead for SWE's Youth Protection Policy Task Force, and I am and have been the Vice President for STEM Outreach for the Pittsburgh Professional Section since 2013. So I have a lot of personal and practical experience that I can share with you on managing youth privacy. The learning outcomes are the session are, by the end of the session, you'll be able to describe at least 3 things you should do to ensure you are following SWE's youth protection policy. And we hope you'll be able to examine how you are handling youth contact and information compared to the best practices. For the purposes of this session, when I say youth, I mean anyone under the age of 18. So what is SWE's youth protection policy? Here are the who, what, when, where, and why for the policy. SWE's Board of Directors approved the policy in September of 2021. The policy and the supporting documents list the requirements and expectations for interacting with youth at any SWE-sponsored event or activity. The policy took effect on July 1st of 2022. You can find more information about the policy at swe.org/youth protection. And why does SWE have a youth protection policy? We have a policy to ensure the safety of youth participants at all SWE-sponsored events. How does the policy affect you? All volunteers interacting with youth at a SWE-sponsored or SWE-supported event or activity must complete the required training and acknowledge the agreement with the Code of Conduct every 3 years. This includes both SWE members and non-SWE members who volunteer, and it includes both on-site and virtual events. So if you are a volunteer leader for a STEM outreach event, it is your responsibility to ensure that all of your volunteers have taken the training. For example, I recently ran an engineer camp, and I had a SWE Nexter, a junior in high school, as one of my volunteers. Even though she's under the age of 18, she was interacting with middle school youth and had to take the training. I also had my brother, who's an engineer, also volunteer at this event. Even though he's not a SWE member, he also had to take the training. So now I want to talk about real-life approaches to managing youth privacy by following the life cycle of a typical STEM outreach event. One of the first interactions you'll have with the youth is when you register them for your event. And the best practice is to collect only the data you really need. So for my events, I typically ask for name, email, grade, zip code, the parent's name, the parent's email, and whether or not they're a SWE Next member. I ask for zip code because I run a lot of virtual events, and although I'm hoping that I get the Pittsburgh SWE Nexters to attend, I find that I do get SWE Nexters from California, Texas, Georgia, etc., and I'd like to know where they're coming from. So that's why I asked for zip code. I ask whether or not you're a SWE Next member, because if they're not, I reach out to them separately and encourage them to join SWE Next. Do not ask these things on your registration form. Do not ask for birth date. Do not ask for the full home address unless you're mailing them something, and do not ask for the phone number. Here's a pro tip. If you minimize the amount of personally identifiable information that you collect, then you have less information that you have to protect. So please minimize that and think carefully about collecting only the data you really need. Here's another important to-do, is that in order for students to attend an event, you need the parent or guardian's permissions. The best practice is that the parent needs to agree to 2 things on behalf of their children. You need them to agree and give permission to attend the event, That's a permission form for minors. And you need, if you're going to take pictures and post them on social media, you need the parents to give permission to take the child's picture and use it on social media. And that's the minor media release form. Now, here's a pro tip. I usually include both of these in the registration form itself. So I'm getting all that information right from the beginning. And note, if you have a participant that is 18 years old, some of our SWE-Nexters who are seniors in high school are 18 years old, they do not need permission to attend the event. They can attend the event on their own without their parents' permission, but you still need to get them to agree to an adult media release form if you plan to use their picture in social media. So you can find all three of these forms in the Outreach Toolkit under the Adult Advocates Resources on the SWE.org website. Now, with the event, you need to contact the youth, perhaps to tell them more details about the event. The best practice is when you're contacting youth, use technologies or platforms that are accessible by multiple SWE members and or the youth's parent. For example, when I send out event details, I use the SWE Pittsburgh section email account. Now, what if you're not a part of a SWE section or a SWE group? You can use your personal email account, but you should make sure to always copy another adult on any email that you send to a youth. So you could copy a SWE member, a teacher, or a parent. For example, I am a SWE-Next Clubs counselor, and when I contact the president of the SWE-Next Club, I typically use my personal email account. It's my message directly to her. But I always copy the faculty advisor on any email that I send her. Also, if you're setting up a meetup with youth, always copy the parent on that email. For example, we recently did a resume review, a free resume review. And one of the things we offered as part of that review was a 30-minute virtual consultation session with a SWE member if they wanted that in order to talk more about their resume or helping even prepare the resume. When we made all the arrangements with the youth for the meetup, the back and forth, what time can we meet? Okay, let's meet now. We always copied the youth's parents on that email. And hey, here's a pro tip. Avoid texting one-on-one with youth. If you have to text, make it a group text with another adult. So you're at your event and maybe you want to post some pictures live at the event. So we'll talk about social media. Don't use the youth's last name when posting pictures, even if you do have a media release. We would love to ensure that level of privacy for the youth in terms of not using their last name. Here was one of the virtual sessions I ran early on, and you can see all the circles, the pink circles. That's where I went in after the fact and blacked out the student's last name so that I could post this picture. And so here's a pro tip. On Zoom calls, edit out the last names at the beginning of the event, and then you don't have all this extra work to do to black out their last names like I had to do. Here's another social media best practice. Don't post pictures that show the faces of youth if you don't have or can't have a parent to approve the media release form. For example, at a SWE activity table at a STEM fair. Here are 3 examples of a SWE activity table that we did in SWE Pittsburgh. Some of these events, we had hundreds of students come by. There was just no way that we were going to get parents to sign the media release form. Often these were school groups coming through, or maybe the parent was somewhere else in the facility at the time. And so what we did instead, here's the pro tip, we took pictures of the SWE members helping the students instead. You can see the backs of their heads, so they're not identifiable. The students are not identifiable. And these are the pictures that we posted in our newsletter, on our website, and in our social media. So don't post pictures that show the faces of youth if you can't get a parent to approve a media release form. We go so far as not even taking pictures with students' faces in it in situations like this. The third social media best practice: never initiate a social networking connection with the youth. Never solicit it or initiate it. If the youth initiates it, you need to use your best judgment. For example, if a high school junior reached out to me on LinkedIn and wanted to connect, I'd go ahead and connect with them on that. But if an eighth grader asked me to friend them or follow them on TikTok, I likely would not do that. Also, refrain from social media interactions that could be seen as excessive, like always liking their posts every single day. You don't want to place any undue attention on one particular youth. So you've run your event. You need to then secure the information that you do collect in your registration forms. And here's the best practice: only a few SWE members should have access to the event database, and those SWE members must have taken the youth protection training. Also, keep that database only as long as you need the information. After the event is over, if you don't plan to run another event like that for a year or more, then you should delete the database. Now, in my case, I run 3 or 4 virtual events every year, and I like to invite my past participants to my future events. So I do keep the database. I make it all one database of anyone who has attended any of my events. But here's a pro tip: if you do keep the database, update it regularly by removing students who have graduated from high school. The former SWE Nexters that are now in college really don't want to be invited to your SWE Next event. So these were our learning outcomes. I hope you can now describe at least 3 things you should do to ensure you're following SWE's youth protection policy. And I'll give you a hint right now: take the training, make sure all your volunteers take the training, and make sure you're getting parental permission to both attend the event and to post their child's picture on social media. I also hope you're able to examine how you're handling the youth contact and information versus these best practices that I shared with you. Do you have questions? Well, we have answers. You can read the frequently asked questions document at swe.org/youthprotection, or you can contact us at youthprotection@swe.org. Thank you for watching this session.